Hey, everybody. Welcome to week 4, we said, of
Week
the Wealthy
4.
Legacy Journey. We've been doing this for a month now, which is crazy. And actually, one of the things that we're trying to do today is get better, right? Always be improving in
Yeah,
what we're
no, for
doing.
sure. 100%.
And so we've got a flow over here. So you might see me referencing the screen. Nathan might. We're trying to get more organized. But, today we're going to be talking about accountability and the power of accountability in your business, in your life, and what you're doing to be able to, journey this road of wealth, building legacy, all this kind of stuff. And, for me, I was even thinking about how did I apply this? And even just today, I actually have a weekly business call with a business friend. His name is Kane. He builds funnels and stuff like that. And we were talking about what are we doing in our business. We always wrap up that call with what is the top 3 things that we're going to get done over the next week or the next 2 weeks until we talk again. And so, finishing out whenever we first jump on the call, it's all about, okay, here was your goals from the last time we talked. Did you reach those goals? Why or why not? And I just think about how that's pushed me. For example, one of my goals, when we last talked 2 weeks ago, was I wanted to start publishing content every single day. And so then every day, whenever I think about publishing content on Facebook, I realized if I don't do this today, I'm gonna have to admit that I didn't do it, and now I have to explain why. And I don't really have a good reason. So it was powerful to have that accountability for me in my life. And then same with Nathan today. We were just kind of talking about what are we doing right now in the business, where are we going. I was feeling a little bit overwhelmed, and being able to share that with Nathan about what I'm feeling, where are we going. Nathan's advice to me was really define you know what you're doing in business. And so that's been powerful for me. What ways has accountability been powerful for you or the people around you that you've seen?
Yeah, so I mean, I had to think about, this week. And so to be transparent, Wednesday, I think it was Wednesday, we're actually going to do the podcast and set it up. And that day I was not feeling it. And I even told Kendall, I'm like, let's just, do it a different day. And I easily could get into that mindset of like, oh, well, just skip it this week. But no, I'm here today. We're doing it, and I'm enjoying it. So, but that day I just wasn't feeling it. And I think that's the thing. Some days it's just like I just don't want to get up and I don't want to do this, or oh, I've got other stuff that's just distracting me, and I just can't focus on this right now. And so for me, it's even just doing this business and going into this, I've recognized like one of the great things that I need is just like what Kendall is like that consistent, like, hey, every week we do it at this time. And just that reminder that if I don't do it, I'm letting him down. And that's a big thing because I think that's huge. So, that's kind of big. My biggest thing I've recognized this week is if I don't do something, I'm letting more, like it can let somebody down and
Right.
vice versa. And so, yeah. So,
Well, and I love what you said there, and that perfectly ties into so whenever I was create the system in my mind of when I'm going to do a new thing, how do I, build this accountability over whether it's new business or it's what I'm doing in ministry, it's what I'm doing, with my family and stuff like that, and these goals. I call it as putting together a board of perspectives, right? And inside of a company, you have a board of directors. Inside of a ministry organization, you have a board of elders. So inside of your own life, how do you have the board of perspectives to give you accountability? And really, to break that down, to build your board of perspectives, you've got to have 4 steps. Number one, you have to be able to define your goals. And I don't know about you guys, but something I struggle with sometimes is setting too many goals, or out of the gate I'll set 2 or 3 goals, and then it's I see the next. I'm really bad with shiny object syndrome. I'm really sick with it sometimes. And then I have to go to my board of perspectives and get that taken care of. And so it's along the way, I pick up this golden nugget and that golden nugget and this golden nugget and that golden nugget. And all of a sudden I have all of these little goals that I'm going for. And that's when I start getting really overwhelmed. Um, and then step 2 really of defining your goals is making sure that you're narrowing your buckets down. Because I would say that you have these big buckets that are big goals, and there's little tasks that get dropped into those buckets, right? And so the more buckets that you have, the more full they get of tasks. And so even with what Nathan just said about, if I don't do this, I'm going to let people down. The problem is, though, if you have too many buckets,
right.
you're going to have an overwhelming amount of tasks that you're not going to be able to get it done. And so like you're not going to be doing anything very good at all. You're going to just kind of be doing a bunch of things like halfway and letting people down. Nathan, do you want to kind of touch on like number 3, assembling that team?
Yeah. So, one thing I think as far as accountability with the assembling the team is like, one, I'm so like amazed at whenever I think about our team, and I'm like, man, if we didn't have these things, what would happen? And recently, I think it's a good thing to bring up because a couple of our guys recently they're actually overseas for a few months, and they hold so much value in what they do. And when they were leaving, we're like, well, we'll just kind of cover the bill in a sense, and just use who we have.
It
But we
won't be
didn't
that
really,
hard.
yeah, we didn't really have we didn't add any people. Let me just say. So we're like, well, we'll just kind of take up the slack. And it's been a couple weeks now, and we're already seeing where those buckets have holes in them, and the leaks are coming in. So when I think about building a team is when you build a team, you need to build a team for a specific, like they take on a specific role.
Right.
And this is what it reminds me of. So like if so-and-so does this and that's what they're doing and that's their role, then they need to be held accountable in that role.
Right.
And that's their one thing. So it's like, for instance, an example would be, let's say mowing lawns. Like if we have 100 properties all over the place, maybe like half of them really need to be checked on for lawn care, and we're coming up in some months. So it's like, even just that, it requires a lot in that role to say, I need to make sure every single one of these is taken care of. And then if that one person goes away, guess what? Somebody else has to do it. But you start seeing like, okay, well, that person may not know, or that person's got this on their plate as well. And then just like we said, there has to be accountability on like, what were we going to do and what was our process? And ultimately that falls on me, and that's the goal you have to look at. It's like at the top, you're always going to be the one that, okay, well, you let that happen. And that kind of gets into another point where it's like with the team, what are you allowing? If you allow it to happen, then essentially you create it, and it's like, so it's something that, we think about daily with just how we each kind of have to evolve in a different role. So.
Well, and then, when I think about that too, like assembling this team to your board of perspectives, like I would say, and I think you would agree, it's really important that you're working with people that are going either the same direction as you're going, or they've already been there. Right. So like when people, hit you up just trying to figure out what they're doing as they can grow, right? It's because you're either going that direction or you've already been where they want to go. Right. And so like that's even, why Nathan's my accountability. He's on my board of perspectives for this business as we're going from 0 to 8 figures, because we're both going the same direction. Right. We've been in some of these places inside of real estate. And that's why, this having each other and inside of this particular team for the board of perspectives is so paramount. But the last point, the last piece of this framework, that if you don't do this right, like you're never going to be able to get that level of accountability, is you have to be able to communicate honestly. And sometimes it can be really hard to bring those walls down.
Oh yeah.
And honestly say like, not just what you feel like you're doing well, but like, what do you feel like isn't going well? And when Nathan came in the door, I really struggled with that. I struggled with trying to take the weight of the world on my own shoulders and doing way too many things. And he came in, and I was feeling overwhelmed. And then I just kind of hit him with like a whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, man, I just got to break it down. Like I'm feeling, overwhelmed because of this and that. And, we got all these different projects that we're doing and all this kind of stuff. And especially for guys, I think that can be really tough sometimes to open up and kind of feel that level of like being vulnerable. But it was really cool because we were able to take like, 5-10 minutes of honesty. Then we used maybe like 20 minutes of breaking all that stuff down to really set some goals of like, okay, here's some goals that we need to put inside of the business. It's like we have our big buckets of what do we want to do, where we want to go. But inside of that, what are those micro goals over time to be able to get there? And even on some things, it was like, hey, maybe we need to pump the brake on this.
Right.
And then in other areas, it was like, maybe we need to focus, on some different things. So, Nathan, can you dive in, to that point of communicating honestly and how important it is whenever you're, building this board of perspectives around what you're
doing? Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest thing is just, well, one, you have to be able to be in a place of receiving, especially when you want feedback. So like what when we talk about board of perspectives, like one thing I'll like to do a lot of times, and it's random, but I'll love to just ask, hey, can you guys give me, like, I'll ask my team, give me some honest feedback. And sometimes you'll get the general answers of like, oh, I think I think you're doing a great job and stuff. And I'm like, that's not helping hold me accountable at that moment, but that goes back to honesty. And I don't think anybody's intentionally wanting to lie, but sometimes it's hard to give that hard truth.
Hmm.
The joke is you can't handle the truth. I
Yeah.
always go back to that. I think I did a post a while back with that, but it is true. Truth is sometimes hard to give out, but you have to be willing to receive it. So if you come in a place of receiving it, one thing I've thought about is just not saying anything, and that's hard, because you immediately get defensive. But I think to be held accountable, you just have to be there, and you just have to go ahead and just hold it in, absorb it, and take it. And I go back to this because I've talked about coaching a lot, and I'm not one that looks at like real estate coaching even from the beginning. I'm like, you're gonna pay $2 to $3 grand a month just to listen to somebody tell you what to do to hit your goals. And there is some value in that, because at the end of the day, you're paying somebody to hold you accountable. And if you don't want to listen to them, well, then why are you paying them?
Right.
And so there's that value in that. And it goes back to the thought process of, like, even with Jackie, she does it with me a lot. And she's very honest, but it's like, I might like, just like, oh, I want to do this, this, and this. And it's like, well, why don't you just start small? Like, that's not realistic. Right. And sometimes it's hard to hear because it's like, well, wait a minute, now you're all of a sudden like, making me feel discouraged. And we feel that way a lot of times, but in reality, it's like, we've got to be truthful. We got to be honest, and we would be almost deceiving somebody and leading them into a place of just complete mystery, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, I think honesty is very key, but I think you have to be in a place that you're ready to receive it, and not, take it as,
man,
skepticism.
That's powerful. Not just being honest, but ready to like receive what's being said back. It's like, hey, you're not doing a great job here, or you need to refocus, reorganize. Like, it's hard to be humble enough to take that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a very important key if we're going to learn to grow. I mean, I don't think the plant can tell us what it needs, but the plant needs certain things to grow, right? It needs water, it needs certain sunlight, it needs the nutrients,
right?
But it can't tell us, but it still needs it. And then, when somebody goes out and they garden, they put all that in there because they know what it needs, but that thing doesn't know what it needs. So sometimes we don't know.
Well, and I think it's that outside perspective,
right?
Which is what I felt like when we talked today. You really were able to bring to me is I've been like, in this one project that we're working on, I've been like in the weeds, and we're really excited about it, right? Oh, yeah. We're really excited about this presentation, what we're bringing to the market, but in that, I've been like in it, and then Nathan comes in, he's able to give me some outside perspective on that, and of just like, hey, 30,000 foot, let's just back up, like, get you out of the weeds of it a little bit, and focus on the big picture. So that's powerful. Well, transitioning then, like, can you kind of talk about like what we've done inside of our business, maybe how have we applied that, what have we been doing this week, as people are kind of interested, like, right, we're going from 0 to 8 figures, so what are we doing to get there?
One thing that I've noticed I caught myself doing was, and I mentioned it to Kendall, and I've realized it's got it subconsciously, was like, there's a lot of times where we get downtime, right? You may be on your phone, you may be doing this, you may be just drifting, watching TV, whatever it is, but I've gotten to the point where it's like, sometimes it's almost too much. And I've noticed twice this week when I've had that, I've told myself, like, if I was to go and pay somebody, let's say our lawn guy, I pay him $70 every 2 weeks. And that's hard because I used to get to a place where I'll just go mow it. But let's say if I'm willing to say I'm going to pay that lawn guy $70 or $100 or whatever it is that you pay, then what am I going to do with that hour or 2 hours that it takes me to do that? How am I going to create that back? And so this week, twice in the evening, where I would say it's kind of like a board time, in a sense, I bought 2 deals. And I know that sounds funny, but they're not the best looking deals. They're not amazing, but I know those deals each made a few $1,000s. And I thought to myself, in an hour, I was able to do that instead of just continuously wasting my time.
Or mowing a lawn.
And so, but that's that accountability. Like
Yeah.
you have to remember and tell yourself. So this week, I would say that's probably the two things that I've recognized. Like, if I'm going to have a lot of that time, I need to at least make sure that I use some of it
That's
to
good.
create and to grow and build the, like what we talk about, the wealth and the legacy,
Yeah.
instead of just, in
Yeah.
a sense, laziness.
Yeah.
That's a lot of times what it ends up being. So
Yeah.
being
Oh,
truthful.
that's powerful. And when I think to this week, like some things that went well, some things that didn't go well, because we all have good and bad in every single week, right? Like, I don't know, something that did go well was, getting to connect, getting to work on our presentation, and getting to get some solid feedback on, what we're working on and how is that getting towards our big goals. What didn't go well for me is yesterday. You ever get in that like brain space where you feel like you have so many things to do that you struggle to like get anything done or feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
you're being
Oh,
productive,
100%.
and like you just kind of want to quit and like shut down and just like crawl into a hole and just be done.
Check
Like,
out and just call
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. And so like that was something that wasn't going so well for me in the week, and when I was trying to apply to the business, that isn't getting us towards any of the goals that we're wanting to do. And so that's really where today's kind of house cleaning really helped me to be able to get perspective on what I'm focused on right now, so I'm not getting bogged down in those things. And lastly for me, and I'd love to hear from you, like, what do I want to do over this next week to improve in the business? One of those things is learning how to trust the people that we've put in place to do the things that they need to do. So I'm actually going on vacation this next week. I'm going to be at the beach with my family. And one of the things that I struggle with is turning my brain off. Whenever, even when I'm here working, like I'm thinking about all these other things, even that I've told other people to do. And I'm texting people a bunch of times. They can tell you I've probably texted about the same thing over and over and over. So he's like, dude, stop. Yes, I got it done. Like, just trust me. But I struggle with that sometimes, like, not wanting, almost micromanaging and keeping up with like every little detail, feeling like if something falls through, it's my fault. Whereas I need to just let it go and say, hey, there's people around me that I trust that are skilled at what they do. I'm going to hand that responsibility off to them to let them get the pieces done that need to get done. And if it becomes a real big urgency, then I can step in and help take care of it at that moment, but not have it on my brain all the time. So like that's something
Right.
that I'm gonna improve over the next week. And that's actually something that I've worked with my board of perspectives on to hold me accountable to taking the steps I need to take in order to be able to do that house cleaning and take care of that for myself. What about you?
That's good. Yeah, I think for me it kind of ties in with his, but I'm going to go to you, the people out there, and I think for me this next week is like even I was telling Kendall we were going to do 2 podcasts this week and just kind of set it for the next week since he's leaving, and I thought no, like I want this to be as real and authentic as possible. So it's like no, we'll do it next week. So for me, it's like I have to commit to doing this next week, and we'll have somebody come on in and join me so I won't be alone and bore you. But yeah, so for me it's like I'm asking you guys, like even if you're watching this and it's like next week this isn't on there, well then you get to say like, whoa, what happened? Like
Right.
and vice versa. So
That's good.
I want that to be there. I think that's a good thing, and I think we for the most part, there's a couple things. I think you said I'm transitioning right now into getting rid of all of my transactions from a real estate perspective off of my hands, and that's a hard thing to relinquish control on. And so we've partnered with a few different agents, and so this next week's going to be a real test for me to just take my hands off the
It's
steering
not
wheel.
checking out either, right?
Yeah,
It's just letting go.
Yeah, and it's like even yesterday the questions were like, hey, do you want showing notifications each time a showing happens, or do you want to report? And I'm like, I don't want the showing notifications because I know if I see it, it's gonna pull me back in, and I'm gonna start making questions and thinking of things.
Knowing what's gonna make you trip.
I just have to trust that these people do their job really well, and that's just something that is, it's like what they say, that's your baby, because that's what we've built this real estate thing on. And so this next week's gonna be fun because we got about I think 12 listings that people are taking over. So it'll be
That's powerful. Well, one of the things that we want to finish out with every week, like one of the big hashtags over our life, over what we're doing, over this show even, is building wealth on purpose for a purpose, right? And when you think about the wealthy legacy journey, like building wealth is that building it on purpose, right? And then the legacy is for a purpose. And so Nathan, like, can you break down for me what is it that you've done this week to see that goal through of being able to build wealth either on purpose or the latter part of that for purpose?
We've got a couple houses that we've been renovating, and we basically are renovating them just for some families to come in overseas to live in them, because they're only going to be here temporary. So one of them's here for 4 months, another family is here for a month. And when I thought about, like, okay, well, what are we doing with these houses? Are we doing it right and everything? I recognize this week I had to remember we're doing this for a purpose.
That's cool.
So even though, and to be transparent about it, like, it's, we could look at it as, okay, well, maybe you're losing money on that by doing that for so long. But I recognize, no, that I had to remember you're doing this for a purpose. And at the end of the day, like, that's what's so great about, like, even just real estate, like how it works, because the value of that home goes up. So even though maybe I might lose money every month on it, if you looked at it from that perspective, it's all gaining back. So but you're doing it for a purpose, and in essence, it's all works itself out. So that's been kind of our focus this week, is just preparing those, having those 2 houses prepared.
That's awesome.
And having a place for people to feel rested when they come here, for the work that they do, because that's tremendous work. So.
Yeah. Well, for me, we really want to be able to take our 3 kids overseas to start getting them a taste for, what does overseas mission look like? What does the need look like, overseas around the world? And so took that step of reaching out to the missions, one of the guys that handles a lot of the missions at our church, and looking at setting up, it's kind of crazy because I got a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old and a 9-month-old that we're looking at taking halfway across the world. But looking at what would that look like to do maybe around the end of the year, beginning of next year, and start planning those steps. And so that's, really my kids and impact the world, to me, is a big part of the legacy project that we're working on, with the Fish and Bread project and stuff. And so, that's probably been my, like, on purpose step for the week.
That's a big purpose.
Yeah,
that's good.
That's good. Well, any closing thoughts that you want to make right quick? That's pretty much it.
It's supposed to be 100 Sunday, I think. So we're getting that Texas heat.
Yes,
so,
we are.
Just be prepared. In all seriousness, though, last year, just make sure that you're prepared for that.
Getting your ACs taken care of.
ACs, allergies, you name it. So it's good. But no, that's it.
Well, there you go. So week number 4, accountability. This week, if you don't have one already, build your board of perspectives. With that, it's awesome to see you guys. See you next week.